On May 30th, 2013, television presenter Raquel Sanchez Silva was in Plasencia, Spain, trying to communicate with her husband, a cameraman named Mario Biondothe. Suddenly she received a call that completely startled her. It belonged to a co-worker of your husband's. He informed her that he never made it to the MasterChef recording set and that everyone on the show was very worried. The woman contacted her domestic employee Vilma, who had the keys to the couple's house. He headed towards Calle de la Magdalena, next to Plaza de Tirso de Molina, in the center of Madrid. During all that time, he remained on the phone telling Raquel every step he took, until when he entered the house, he was speechless. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Mario, in his early 30s, lay lifeless, with a handkerchief around his neck and hanging from a bookshelf. Although the first hypotheses said that he had taken his own life, the case was far more complex and full of edges, the entire country in suspense. Night criminalist Mario Biondothe was born on July 18, 1982, in the city of Palermo, located in Sicily, Italy. His parents were Santina de Alessandro and Giuseppe Biondothe, who in turn had another daughter, Emanuela, shortly after. The family grew with the arrival of Andrea, the youngest of the brothers. Mario had a happy childhood, surrounded by those who loved him. When he reached adolescence, he was specifically interested in two hobbies: photography and cinema. This led him to acquire a camera and to practice the trade tirelessly. Upon graduating from secondary school, he entered the University of Palermo. After finishing his degree, he moved to Rome to officially start working as a cameraman. Over the years, he obtained better jobs to the point where he received job offers in Spain. The same were for the most watched programs in that country. Thus, Mario began to be part of Supervivientes and MasterChef. And it was then that he met who would be the love of his life, Raquel Sanchez Silva. He was born on January 17, 1973 in the city of Plasencia, Spain. From a very young age, she showed interest in the world of sports. At the age of 7, she began practicing volleyball and shortly after classical dance. By the time she reached adulthood, Raquel was doing all kinds of physical activity. However, his mother suggested that he dedicate himself to journalism, since she felt that he could do well in that profession. The young woman decided to follow her mother's advice, and in 1990 she began studying at the Pontifical University of Salamanca. Thanks to his great charisma, he was able to get jobs as a sports journalist even before graduating. In 1994, he obtained his title, and the successes continued to come. Over the years, she consolidated herself as one of the presenters of the best-known reality shows in the country. It was on the set of Survivors in Honduras, who bumped into Mario, and the arrow was instantaneous. After 3 months of meeting, the couple began to plan a life together. During the last days of filming, Raquel gave Mario the key to her apartment, forever sealing her fate. Finally, they traveled to Taormina, the city of Sicily. There, Mario asked her to marry him, and on June 22, 2012, they held the ceremony in the same place. They moved to a beautiful apartment located on Calle de la Magdalena, next to Plaza de Tirso de Molina, in the center of Madrid. Over the next few months, they showed themselves to be the perfect couple. Every time a journalist asked Raquel how she felt about her new marriage, she replied that she had never been happier. And so it seemed until May 30, 2013, the woman received the worst possible news. After trying to locate Mario for several hours, Raquel received a call from the MasterChef offices. He was a partner of her husband's. Both he and the rest of the employees wanted to know why he hadn't gone to the recording that day. The woman had no idea what had happened. Since he was on a trip to Plasencia, he couldn't go home to see how he was doing. Mario decided to call Vilma, his maid, to tell her to come closer to the house. At 5 p.m., the lady showed up at the house while continuing to talk to Raquel on the phone, but all the words disappeared from her mouth. Seeing the disturbing scene, Mario has already hanged himself in the dining room with a handkerchief around his neck, which was hanging from a shelf. Beside him were several tissues containing semen. A few seconds later, Vilma regained her composure and ran out into the street. He spotted a police car just passing through the area and alerted the officers. 10 minutes later, they entered the home. When inspecting the body, they noted that it was in partial suspension, dressed in a red t-shirt and dark green striped pajama pants. He had a handkerchief knotted at one end around his neck, and the other on one of the living room shelves next to it. They proceeded to inspect the property. They noticed that everything was in order. There was no sign of a struggle. The windows remained closed and the lock had not been forced. The only thing striking was an ashtray with a large number of butts and several beer cans. The first thing they thought was that it was self-deprivation of life. However, there was also no note written by Mario explaining the reasons for his apparent decision to take his own life. The situation was too strange and raised more questions than certainties. At 8:15 p.m., Raquel managed to get home. She tried to enter to see her late husband, but they wouldn't let her. She was treated by a psychologist and then briefly questioned by the police. That same night, Mario's body was transferred to the Forensic Anatomical Institute for an autopsy. It said that he had died of mechanical asphyxiation. No signs of violence were found on his body, except for bruises on his legs. The toxicology report, for its part, revealed that he had consumed large quantities of alcohol and cocaine. Experts speculated that Mario had died accidentally by performing an intimate game of self-asphyxiation, but it was impossible to determine to what extent the death was voluntary. The coroner in charge of the autopsy classified it as self-deprivation of life. The cameraman's family received the news with great pain. Since they were very religious, they asked that the body not be cremated. They traveled from Italy to have him embalmed and to carry out the repatriation procedures. On June 1st, Raquel wrote on her Twitter account, "Mario was a happy man and we were deeply in love." The investigation is ongoing, and I would ask you not to jump to conclusions. Mario wanted to live and didn't take his own life. Everything points to an unfortunate accident. I beg you prudence and respect for the memory of my husband and the pain of all of us who loved him. Mario's family, for their part, did not buy the theory that the young man had taken his own life. They stated that he had no reason to do so, especially because they knew he was planning to have children with his wife and prepare a big television project. On June 3rd, Mario's family and wife joined together to sign a press release emphasizing the accident theory. Mario didn't take his own life. Mario wanted to live, the text said. 3 days later, the funeral was held in Taormina. After that, the investigations began, and due to Raquel's fame, the conjectures that led to her and the family never being united again, according to the reconstruction of the events carried out by the police on May 29, 2013 at 7:00 p.m. Mario and Raquel had a strong fight at his home. Apparently, this would have focused on the cameraman's substance use. This was causing him oligospermia, that is, lack of sperm, which is why the presenter couldn't get pregnant. The discussion ended at 8:30 a.m. The couple was on good terms, and Mario accompanied Raquel to the building's garage, where they said goodbye, because she would travel to Plasencia to visit her parents' home. He had to resolve some family matters shortly after his wife's departure. specifically at 8:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. at night. Mario made 3 consecutive calls to a specific phone number. The investigation revealed that he was a seller of illegal substances. At 9, the cameraman had a conversation of a few minutes via Facebook with his sister Manuela, who resided in Sicily. He told her about his future professional projects and put special emphasis on a new program for the channel. Telecinco planned to travel with Raquel around the world, recording the experience with his camera. A few hours later, Mario went to an ATM near his home and withdrew $110. This operation was recorded in the movements of his current account. However, the money was not found during the raid, so it was speculated that the cameraman spent it all. That same night, at 10:30 a.m., he crossed paths with a neighbor of the building, according to the woman's statement. She thanked him for walking her dog days ago, but Mario didn't seem to pay attention. At 11, the man spoke to Raquel on the phone. 45 minutes later, they started messaging each other on WhatsApp. It was 12:06 a.m. when Mario entered Facebook again to chat briefly with Andrea. As he had done with his sister, he told her about his future TV projects in the meantime. He was still talking to Raquel. The conversation concluded 8 minutes after 1 a.m., when they said goodbye affectionately. After telling each other that they loved each other, Mario assured him that he was going to sleep, but this was a big lie. According to his computer history, the cameraman was left browsing various adult film websites. At 2, he searched Google Maps. The exact location of a brothel located in the center of Madrid. Thanks to the bank statement, it was possible to verify that he actually traveled there. He paid with his credit card for 3 drinks, the last purchase being 7 minutes before 3 a.m. However, no evidence was found that he will request other services. It was also not possible to verify whether it was in that place where he finally acquired the drug that he would consume that night at some point in the morning. Mario left the place and returned to his home. There he again consumed explicit material from his computer and wrote what would be his last document, an alleged breakdown for the program he was preparing for television. At 5:59 a.m., he connected to WhatsApp for the last time just to check it. He had no conversation. According to the autopsy, around 6 in the morning he died. Although the only hypothesis that was handled was that Mario had taken his own life, there was nothing concrete in the investigation that led to that conclusion. Mario's relatives were extremely outraged by this theory, but the same was not true of Raquel. The presenter announced that she had to resume her professional career to be able to put her life back together. Just a few days later, he was seen on a beach. And months later, he returned to television with a smile on his face. This aroused the wrath of the Biondothe, who considered his behavior totally inappropriate. They claimed from Raquel the few assets that Mario owned. The woman became so stressed by this process that she decided to renounce her inheritance, and with it, the little relationship she had with her political family. He also tried to recuse himself from the case, but failed in December 2013. The Italian prosecutor's office requested the exhumation of the body at the request of Los Viendo. In addition, they hired 2 forensic scientists, who again analyzed the scene of the events. They came to the conclusion that the position in which Mario's body was found was incompatible with a voluntary positioning within the scope of a suicidal dynamic. The physical forces in games would not have allowed the head to appear in the position it was in. Shortly after, 2 Italian prosecutors moved to the Plaza de Castilla courts to re-examine all the witnesses in the case. In June 2014, a judicial process called a rogatory was conducted, in which a judge requested the foreign authorities to collect evidence. It was then that Rachel attended a new interrogation. There he showed certain contradictions in regard to his previous statements. While the first time she had admitted that her husband used drugs, this time she flatly denied it. Rumors had come to him that he did drugs while filming in Honduras, but he had never done so while they were living together. When this contradiction was pointed out, the woman said that she did not remember what she had said to the Spanish police. But that was not all. They also asked him about a man named Nacho Leonardi. Raquel claimed she didn't know him, but he assured that it must be a drug dealer. However, prosecutors told her that her husband had made a backup copy of her phone, in which there were messages and calls with this man. As the new investigation told us, the couple would have argued for months because Mario believed that his wife was cheating on him. At that moment, Raquel asked the judge for protection, who told her that she must respond. The woman limited herself to saying that it was her privacy, and that she did not remember said exchange of messages. Meanwhile, the indignation of those watching grew more and more. They assured that there was a chain of errors during the investigation, as the cameras of the building or the bank branch that Mario had supposedly attended were not checked. They also discovered that in one of the images of the scene, it could be seen that several television cables were missing. This was also not taken into account. Santina assured that whoever took her son's life must have the keys to her house, since when the domestic worker arrived at the home, the door was closed. They started pointing directly at Rachel as the culprit. They even called a vigil in a square in Palermo. To demand justice for the cameraman, they filed an appeal almost at the same time. Finally, they got the Italian justice to draw up a new report. In it, they denied that Mario had ingested alcohol or drugs on the night of his death. Also hired a company called Emetim, a technology expert, who analyzed Mario's computer and cell phone, as well as the house's networks. Although its origin was later questioned, the report showed that someone had altered the data on Mario's electronic devices, and that there were differences between the backups saved on his cell phone and computer, and those stored on the computers. He also revealed that after the cameraman's death, around 196 gigabytes of files had been deleted. Rachel had to testify before a judge to explain why this had happened. The presenter responded that they were photos of her, that she did not want her in-laws to see, and that she did it with the help of her cousin, who was a computer engineer. In addition, investigators noticed that at 2:41 a.m. on May 31st, someone changed the password on Mario's laptop. Regarding this, Raquel said that she was at the Forensic Anatomical Institute with Mario's parents and her cousin. However, there was no record of the boy being there. Finally, it was discovered that on the day of death, 2 cell phones that did not belong to the cameraman were connected to the house's Wi-Fi. They both joined Facebook and Twitter. Upon receiving this information, the Biondothes believed they would finally get justice, but they couldn't be more wrong. In June 2016, Section number 15 of the Provincial Court closed the case. The ruling said the autopsy report did not rule out criminality, but Mario's death was attributed to a medical legal etiology, presumably suicide. It also stressed that no person had been charged as possibly responsible for the events. In addition, a second ruling from Section number 30 of the Provincial Court of Madrid convicted Mario's father, mother, and sister for a lack of insults against Raquel posted on social networks. They had taken possession of their Twitter and Facebook accounts, saying things like that the happy widow has soon been consoled or her pain is fake. They were ordered to pay $3,000 to the presenter for moral damages and decided to serve an 8-day sentence of permanent location. But this did not stop them seeing them. In June 2016, Santina posted an image of her son as he was found when he died. His aim was to show that it was obvious that it was murder, and not a self-deprivation of life. It was clear that he did not want to give up, and that's how on November 5th, 2018, Mario's body was exhumed again. They subjected him to a 1-3 necropsy, which was carried out by the Anatomical Institute of the Palermo Polyclinic. An important discovery was made there. Neither Mario's skull nor stomach had been opened in the first examination. That meant that the previous specialists had not complied with part of the protocol for the investigation. In performing this task, the new forensics found blows to the left side of Mario's head and a clot in his brain. These could have perfectly occurred when dragging the body during a strangulation, hitting it, for example, with the dining room table. That was possible because the furniture had rounded corners, therefore. They would have left some cuts on my face and scalp. Santina and Huispe filed a complaint in the Provincial Court of Madrid against Jose Maria Venzarojo, the coroner who recovered Mario's body on the day of his death. They accused him of not having carried out the relevant examinations at the autopsy and of falsifying public documents necessary for the resolution of the case. The magistrates ordered the investigating judge to investigate whether the doctor was guilty, however. The case continued almost without news. The lack of support Mario's family received was increasingly noticeable. Or at least that's how it was. Until in 2021 they hired criminologist Luis Duque. The man came to the same conclusion, that Mario's relatives had been strangled by someone else. He pointed out that in the images of the find, it could be seen that the knot that tied the scarf to his neck was extremely loose, and that it was below the larynx. This was something unusual, since what is expected in a self-deprivation of life is that lasso is always above the nut of his neck. Furthermore, he indicated that the fact that his feet were against the ground was completely incompatible with the position of the rest of his body. He also highlighted that in the closet to which the handkerchief was tied, there were a large number of objects, which were in perfect order. This was not compatible with a death caused by mechanical asphyxiation, since it causes convulsions in the body. It should have caused the objects to fall to the floor. With all the investigation finally in their favor, watching them went to Saturday's Lux, the TV show. There they attacked Rachel hard. They said he was a lying, cold, selfish person. They claimed that days before her death, Mario discovered that she had been unfaithful to him. They even hinted that this could have been the motive for the homicide. Faced with these statements, Raquel preferred to remain silent. Some people thought I was afraid if that was the case. This feeling didn't last long. On August 1st, 2022, Italian justice made a 180 turn. The Palermo judge indicated that the elements that were extracted from the public ministry file suggested that Mario, he was murdered by unknown hands and subsequently placed in a position capable of simulating self-deprivation of life. He also expressed that the Spanish agents did not carry out the relevant activities at the scene of the events. Despite this, the judge ruled that it was impossible to carry out new investigations. Having passed so much time since his death, Biondotte's family decided to definitively close the case. They received the news with great sadness. However, Santina was grateful that a judge finally agreed with her. At least it had been made clear that his son had not taken his own life through erotic games. Raquel, for her part, had already rebuilt her life. She had been in a relationship since 2015 with Matias Munt, an Argentine audiovisual producer, and had 2 children. She had also continued to enjoy success in her career as a presenter, especially in Masters of Sewing. Although the case was closed by the judiciary, it continued to be a scandal in the media. Oscar Taruela, a renowned criminologist, contacted the Biondo family to tell them that he would like to investigate the case and publish his conclusions on his YouTube channel. They agreed, and he did, as well as his colleague Duke. He was sure the cameraman had been murdered. He said that whoever carried out the crime had access to the keys to the home and was known to Mario. He stated that it could even be 2 people. Both would have entered the home after 12.6 minutes in the morning of May 30th, 2013. At that moment, they began a conversation with the cameraman, followed by someone who previously disconnected the television cables. He came up behind her and surprisingly ran one of the wires around her neck. He performed a two-way pull with him and gave him a complete strangulation. Mario must have tried to resist, but the second person tried to help the first to choke Mario's breath, probably using a pillow that was later found on the floor. What followed this hypothesis was even more scandalous in 2023. Netflix announced that on August 3rd, it would a documentary series called The Last Days of Mario Biondothe. Very shortly before that date, the Biondothe family and Oscar, who had been part of the recordings, received news that completely paralyzed them. The producer of the docuseries was Guillermo Gomez Sancha. Raquel's former presenter decided to revoke his image consents, however. Neither Netflix nor the production companies agreed to accept this request and finally used these resources in audiovisual. Outraged, the criminologist decided to share a video on his YouTube channel, giving unprecedented data about the investigation. He said that Mario's family began a private investigation carried out by a legitimately hired detective agency, thanks to which they had discovered relevant details. One of them involved Raquel, and regarding the official reason for death, drowning due to mechanical asphyxiation according to Oscar, Raquel would have assured in her statement before the judge that Mario and his sister played games of asphyxiation. However, both Emanuela and the rest of the family declared that this was false. In turn, a witness very close to Raquel's environment stated that the one who actually played erotic self-asphyxiation games was she. He narrated that he learned it when he traveled to England to practice English. In addition, a video could have perfectly explained how to carry out this type of practice. After watching the documentary, they expressed that it was trying to support the hypothesis that Mario took his own life and discredit his efforts to prove that he died because of third parties. However, the series also presented a striking new theory. Santina and Wispe testified before camera that before their son died, they had suspected for some time that Raquel was hiding a secret. He believed it had been part of the recording of an erotic video, although he didn't want it to be known. Mario was obsessed with finding those alleged images and spent his last months searching adult pages for his wife. This dismayed him mainly because it was the final proof that Rachel had been unfaithful to him, according to the Bondos. The conversations and emails between the couple hinted at that version of events. For them, this could be the real motive for the crime. However, the case remains closed to this day. It is not known exactly how Mario Biondothe died. Surrounding his death grow every day. On the one hand, we have a woman who has been the subject of every possible accusation. On the other, to a family with a lot of evidence to their credit that wants to clear the cameraman's name and continues to repeat to the point of exhaustion that Mario did not take his own life. What do you think?